On December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor was attacked. This, along with other events of World War II, led to deeper anti-Japanese feelings and paranoia. 2 months later, in February 19, 1942, Franklin Delano Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066.
Pearl Harbor scared everyone. This was the first attack on American soil, and it was led by the Japanese. It promoted fear and distrust to an entire culture and nationality. This came to a head in FDR's Executive Order 9066.
127,000 U.S. citizens of Japanese ancestry were relocated to 10 camps dispersed to remote locations across the western areas of the United States. The living conditions at the camps were uncomfortable. They were forced to sleep in tar barracks and had to endure hard manual farming labor every day.
The people who were relocated to the camps weren't those seeking to defeat the United States. 2/3 of them were American-born. They had never seen Japan, let alone wanted to fight for the country. No one was spared. Even decorated World War I vets were forced from their homes and sent to live in the camps until the war was over.
At 23 years old, Fred Korematsu defied the camps. He refused to leave his home in San Leandro, California. He was arrested and forcibly taken to the internment. Fred Korematsu felt the internment camps were unjust. He believed his civil liberties protected him from this and appealed all the way to the Supreme Court to prove it. Harlan Stone was Chief Justice in 1944 when Korematsu v. United States was brought to the court's attention. Stone was a strong Republican, making his nomination as Chief Justice even more surprising, given that President Roosevelt was a Democrat. In the case of Korematsu v. United States, the court ruled in favor of the United States government with a vote of 6-3. The opinion was written based off the assertion that the United States government and military could arrest and deny rights to citizens during a time of war, specifically during a time of emergency and peril. The United States had argued that not all of the Japanese Americans' loyalties lay with the United States. Therefore, because sorting through them was not an option, imprisonment was the only solution. The government declared that the priority in a time of war was to protect citizens against espionage and sabotage, and this outweighed the rights of Japanese Americans. The court realized that putting all people with Japanese ancestry in prison camps was a hardship, but they declared that everyone must suffer hardships during a time of war. 3 justices wrote dissents for the case. Justice Roberts wrote that in the case of Korematsu v. U.S., it was not merely a case of curfew or a temporary exclusion, as other cases had been, but a situation much more extreme.
Roberts believed that the rights of the Japanese Americans were being violated by this executive order, and that the rights of the people should not be violated, even in the gravest times of war.
Justice Jackson agreed with Roberts, saying that an issue of national wartime security was not enough to strip citizens of their rights. Jackson believed this decision would set a precedent for future racial discrimination. Justice Murphy concurred, stating that the imprisonment of Japanese Americans was a result of years of half-truths and misinformation from people with racial prejudices. An earlier case, titled Hirabashi v. United States, ran along the same lines and was cited as precedent in Korematsu. This case dealt with part of Executive Order No. 9066 that instated a curfew only on Japanese Americans.
The court upheld the side of the U.S. government, claiming that the government and military were allowed to take necessary steps to protect the United States citizens in a time of war. Placing a curfew on Japanese Americans solely based on race was deemed a necessary step. The plaintiff in the case, Gordon Hirabayashi, believed that the curfew was discriminatory towards people of Japanese descent.
The Supreme Court agreed with the government that the need to protect the country was more important than the individual rights of Japanese Americans.
In 1983, Korematsu appealed his conviction and it was overturned.
Later that year, San Francisco's federal court stated that at the time, the government's case had been based on false, misleading, and racially biased information.
In 1988, Congress passed the legislation apologizing for the internments and awarded each survivor $20,000. While the American concentration camps never reached the levels of Nazi death camps as far as atrocities are concerned, they remain a dark mark on the nation's record of respecting civil liberties and cultural differences.